Ho Chi Minh, known to Vietnamese as the father of the nation, was a tough-as-nails revolutionary leader who took Vietnam from being under foreign control to standing on its own 2 feet. His life was like an epic road trip, full of struggles, crossing continents and picking up ideas from all over, but it all boiled down to one big dream: freeing his people. This isn't just a story about one guy, it's about love for your homeland, giving everything you've got, and a will so strong nothing could break it. Ho Chi Minh was born on May 19, 1890, in a little village called Hoang Tru in Nung An province. His real name? Nguyen Sin Kung. He grew up in a family all about Confucian values. Think of it as an old-school code about living right, being fair, and keeping society running smoothly. His dad, Nguyen Sin Sak, born in 1862 and passing in 1929, was a scholar who worked his way up to a local official gig. Saki's parents were Nguyen Sin Ham and Ha Thi Hai, and he was raised in a hardcore Confucian vibe under his father-in-law, Huang Xuan Zhuang. He aced his exams, became a bachelor in 1894, and a village deputy in 1901. By 1906, the royal court gave him a job in the Ministry of Rights, and in 1909, he was running Bin K district in Bin Jin. But he didn't last long. Got sacked after letting a so-called criminal go free. After that, he headed south, settling in Hoa An village, Khao Lan, Jong Tap, till the end of his days. His mom, Hoang Thi Lon, born in 1868 and gone by 1901, was Huang Xuan Zhuang's daughter. She married Sak at 15, and they had 4 kids together. When Sak went to Hue to take his exams, money was tight, so she left her oldest daughter back in Ung An and took her 2 boys, Nguyen Sin Kiem, 7, and Nguyen Sin Kung, 5, along with her husband. In Hue, she wove cloth to keep the family afloat. In 1900, after giving birth to their 4th kid, Nguyen Sin Huan, years of hard work caught up with her. She got sick and passed away on February 10, 1901. Sak and the eldest were off in Than Hoa, so 11-year-old Nguyen Tat Than, later Ho Chi Minh, had to step up, handling her funeral with just the neighbors' help. In 1904, back in Hai Tin, the French colonial rulers forced locals to build the Qua Rao Road to Tran Ninh. It was brutal. Hunger and backbreaking work killed tons of people, leaving behind heartbreak everywhere. That disaster hit young Nguyen Tat Than hard, sparking a deep love for his people. In the years that followed, tagging along with his dad to Hue and other spots, he saw firsthand how tough life was. Folks crushed under French and feudal rule. It fired up his patriotism, broke his heart for his people, and fueled a burning hatred for the oppressors. Even as a kid, he couldn't stand seeing his countrymen suffer. That's when he decided, I've got to kick these colonial jerks out and set my people free. His family and hometown were the spark that lit his revolutionary fire. In 1906, Nguyen Sin Kung moved with his dad to Hue and started at the French-Vietnamese Dong Ba Elementary School. There, he dug into Confucian teachings and got a taste of Western culture, too. That mix sharpened his mind and gave him a knack for thinking things through. He breezed through 2nd grade in 1906 to 1907 and 1st grade in 1907 to 1908. In the 1908 Primaire exams, he was one of the top 10 at Zhongba, earning a fast track to Quoc Hoc's high school program. Even back then, you could tell he was sharp, but no one guessed he'd end up rewriting a nation's future. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Vietnam's patriotic movements kept hitting dead ends, leaving the revolution stuck in a rut with no clear path forward. That mess made Nguyen Tat Than realize the power of people when they're rallied together. He saw the old ways weren't cutting it. Those earlier leaders couldn't crack the code. Sticking to their playbook was tough enough, but finding a fresh route that fit the times and won freedom, that was next-level hard. So he decided to head west, where ideas like freedom, equality, and compassion were buzzing. hoping to find a new game plan and bring it home to save his country and his people. His goal was crystal clear. With Vietnam in chaos and the world heating up, on June 5, 1911, under the name Văn Ba, he hopped on the Latouche Treville at Na Rong Port in Saigon, sailing off to chase a revolutionary truth. All he carried was a love for his country, hands ready to work, and a rock-solid determination to rescue his nation. On that same day, June 5, 1911, aboard the Amiral Latouche Treville, Nguyen Tat Thanh left Vietnam from Saigon, kicking off a 30-year quest to find a way to free his people and his land. Back then, nobody could have known that one guy's choice to hit the road would tie into Vietnam's destiny. A choice history later proved was flat-out brilliant and extraordinary. Here's the thing. Nguyen Tat Thanh didn't head to Japan or stick around Asia like others might have. He went straight for France, the very power lording over Vietnam, and then deeper into Europe, where progress in economy, culture, and politics was off the charts. He wanted to figure out how they ticked and use it to help his folks back home. He packed light. Just his patriotism, a heart for his people, and a drive to save them. He landed at Marseille in France. Those first days there, he noticed something. Even in France, there were poor people struggling, just like in Vietnam. In 1912, he took a job on a Chargeur Réuni ship, sailing around Africa. Along the way, he stopped at ports in Spain, Portugal, Algeria, Tunisia, you name it. Everywhere he went, he saw workers getting crushed under ruthless rulers. It tore him up inside and made him think of his own people, suffering the same kind of cruelty from the French. Then he sailed through Martinique, Uruguay, and Argentina, hitting the U.S. by late 1912. There, he checked out America's fight for independence and read their 1776 Declaration of Independence. While scraping by with odd jobs, he explored life for American workers, hitting New York, blown away by skyscrapers, but also struck by the slums in Harlem, where black folks fought against racism. He quickly saw through the U.S. empire's shiny promises. Behind all the talk of rights and democracy was some seriously harsh exploitation. Early 1913, he left the States, swung back through Le Havre, and landed in England. In the UK, he jumped into outdoor political speeches, joined the Overseas Workers' Association in London, and kept tabs on World War I news. By late 1917, he said goodbye to London and headed back to France, the place he'd been aiming for since day one. He bounced around Paris from a tiny room on Charonne Street to a spot at 6 Villa de Gobelin in the 13th district, then 9 Compoint Alley in the 17th, one of the city's roughest areas. To get by, he worked all sorts of gigs, helping at a photo shop, painting for a fake Chinese antiques outfit. Life was tough, and French spies were always on his tail, but he didn't quit. He kept learning, kept pushing, meeting up with progressive Vietnamese expats, and digging into France's political, economic, and social scene, slowly joining the fight alongside French workers. In early 1919, he signed up with the French Socialist Party, figuring it was the only group in France chasing the big ideals of their revolution: liberty, equality, fraternity. Mid-1919, he stepped up for Vietnam's patriots in France, sending a demands of the Annamese people, signed as Nguyen Ai Quoc, to the Versailles Conference, where the big colonial powers were hashing things out. It was the first time Vietnam's cry for justice hit the global stage, and the first time Nguyen Ai Quoc's name rang out in politics. The demands were pretty basic, just asking for reforms, but nobody bothered to reply. That taught him a hard truth. If we want freedom, we've got to rely on ourselves, our own strength. Still, that move made waves among Vietnamese, French, and folks worldwide. It showed he was ready to take on imperialism head-on. Summer 1920 rolled around, and Nguyen Ai Quoc stumbled on Lenin's theses on national and colonial questions in the newspaper L'Humanité. Lenin's ideas that communist parties needed to back revolutions in colonies and unite workers everywhere against imperialism and feudalism lit a fire in him. It clicked. This was the way to win independence and freedom for his people. He later said it made him feel moved, fired up, clear-headed, and confident. He'd found our path to liberation. That led to a big call. In December 1920, he voted to join the Communist International and helped kick off the French Communist Party. That moment flipped his life from pure patriot to full-on socialist fighter. With a solid mix of theory and real-world grit, he started writing articles for radical papers in Russia and France. Titles like The Oppressed, Humanity, Worker's Life, Communist Magazine, International Correspondence, calling out French colonial crimes, shining a light on suffering in places like Vietnam, and slamming imperialism hard. He wanted to wake up folks in colonized countries. In 1925, he dropped The Trial of French Colonialism, a brutal takedown of France's rule. His writings got smuggled into Vietnam, spreading like wildfire among regular people, rallying them to fight for freedom. Late 1924, he left Moscow for Guangzhou, China's revolutionary hotspot at the time. In 1925, there, he set up the Vietnam Revolutionary Youth League, a group leaning hard into communism, launched the youth newspaper to spread Marx and Lenin's ideas back home, and ran training sessions for Vietnam's future revolutionaries. His articles later got bundled into The Revolutionary Path, the first political playbook for Vietnam's revolution, laying out his vision and strategy, tying national independence to socialism. On February 3, 1930, in Hong Kong, he pulled off a game-changer, uniting three communist factions into one, the Communist Party of Vietnam. It was a historic win, ending years of confusion over direction and organization in Vietnam's patriotic push. That party's birth showed off his vision, guts, and smarts, proving he could turn Marx and Lenin's ideas into a real-deal revolutionary force for Vietnam. After getting the party off the ground, from 1930 to 1940, he worked with the Communist International abroad. But it wasn't smooth sailing. In 1931, he got nabbed by British colonial cops in Hong Kong, stuck in jail until 1933. Using the alias Tong Von So, he was nearly handed over to the French in Indochina. The August 9, 1932, issue of L'Humanité claimed he died of tuberculosis in a prison clinic, accusing France and Britain of plotting to take out the communist leader. But thanks to lawyer Francis Henry Lousby fighting tooth and nail, he walked free on December 28, 1932. Even locked up, his mind never left the revolution back home. He was itching to get back and help his people every second of the day. Early 1934, after breaking out, he headed back to Moscow. For nearly 5 years, he lived in a tense vibe, with the Communist International all shook up. But he stayed steady, sticking to his guns and the party's principles, pushing through the chaos to keep his path for Vietnam solid. He enrolled at the Lenin International School, a training ground for foreign communists, diving deep into proletarian revolution stuff and blending it with his decades of on-the-ground experience to fine-tune his plan for Vietnam's freedom. In 1935, he hit up the Seventh Comintern Congress, picking up fresh ideas about rallying a broad national front against imperialism for democracy, food, and peace. Despite all the hurdles, with the world and Vietnam changing fast, especially with a world war looming thanks to fascist powers, once the Comintern gave him the green light to head home, he ditched his half-done dissertation at the Institute for National and Colonial Studies, hopped a train from Moscow, and headed east. Late 1939, he rolled into Kunming, Yunnan's capital in China, to link up with the party and find a way back to Vietnam. On January 28, 1941, he crossed milestone 108 on the Vietnam-China border, stepping into Pac Bo village, Truong Ha commune, Ha Quang district, Cao Bang province, back on Vietnamese soil after 30 years of chasing a way to save his country and people. It was a huge deal, flipping the page to a new chapter for him and kickstarting a bold new phase for Vietnam's revolution. In May 1941, he called and ran the 8th Central Committee Conference. They nailed down that freeing the nation was job number 1 for Indochina. He locked in a sharp, creative strategy, raising the flag of independence and freedom, setting up a democratic republic that fit the moment. Those smart, timely calls made rallying the whole nation, launching the Viet Minh Front, building armed forces, and setting up bases the key to sparking massive revolutionary waves across the country. August 1945 came, and with his razor-sharp instincts, he saw the stars aligning. Japan was crumbling, France was weak. He went all in. We'd burn the whole Truong Son range if it meant winning independence. He pushed. We've got to free ourselves with our own hands. Under his and the party's lead, Vietnam's people came together as one unstoppable force, pulling off the August Revolution, toppling colonial and feudal rule to birth the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, Southeast Asia's first people-powered state. It was the dawn of Vietnam's brightest era, the Ho Chi Minh era. On September 2nd, 1945, speaking for the Provisional Government, Chairman Ho Chi Minh read the Declaration of Independence in Hanoi, officially launching the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. That document was a loud and clear message to the world. Vietnam was born, done with oppression, free from centuries of chains, ready for a fresh start, independent and free. Led by the Communist Party and Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam's revolution rolled over every obstacle, racking up win after win. They beat the French, with the Dien Bien Phu victory shaking the globe, freeing the North, and setting up a strong base to unite the country. Then came the massive win against the U.S., capped by the historic Ho Chi Minh Campaign, liberating the South and bringing Vietnam together. Plus, the early successes of reform and global integration, all huge steps forward. From the late 1960s, his health started fading, and he'd head to China for rest and treatment, especially in his last 3 years when he was hit with serious illness. He stepped back from politics, becoming the revolution's symbol, spending time visiting folks, boosting morale, and writing. From 1951 to 1969, he held the top spot as party chairman, the biggest role in Vietnam's Communist Party history, outranking even the general secretary. After he passed in 1969, they retired that title as a one-of-a-kind honor just for him. He started his will on his 75th birthday, May 10, 1965, tweaking it on later birthdays. In his final years, old age brought an untreatable heart condition. On the afternoon of August 12, 1969, he was still okay, listening to Lê Duc Tho update him on the Paris talks. But that night, he spiked a fever and coughed, and it got worse fast. Doc said his heart was too weak to fix. After 2 weeks in bed, he slipped into a coma late on September 1st. By 6 a.m. on September 2nd, he was on a ventilator. At 9 a.m., a bad heart failure hit. They tried to save him, but it was no use. The EKG flatlined at 9:15. Ho Chi Minh passed at 9:47 a.m. on September 2nd, 1969 in Hanoi from heart failure at 79. With the war on, to avoid clashing with National Day, the party announced his death as September 3rd, later corrected to September 2nd in 1989. Hanoi got over 22,000 condolence messages from 121 countries. Socialist nations held their own memorials, praising him big time. Moscow hailed him as a great son of Vietnam, a standout leader in the global communist and liberation movements, and a true friend of the Soviet Union. Third world countries cheered him as a champion for the oppressed. An Indian paper called him the soul of his people and the embodiment of their relentless fight for freedom. A Uruguay piece said, "He had a heart as big as the universe and endless love for kids." A model of simplicity. His funeral went down on September 9th at Ba Jin Square, with over 100,000 people showing up, including delegations from socialist countries. Millions across Vietnam cried for him. In his will, he wanted to be cremated, his ashes spread across the country's 3 regions. But the party, government, and people decided differently. The Central Committee's Politburo chose to preserve his body, so everyone, especially Southerners and international visitors, could pay respects. Since then, he's been kept in the Hanoi Mausoleum, like Lenin in Moscow. So, that's the wild ride of Ho Chi Minh, a guy who started with nothing but a dream and ended up reshaping a nation. From a kid burying his mom in a small village to a leader staring down empires, he showed what's possible when you refuse to give up. But here's the thing. His story isn't just locked in the past. It's a spark. It makes you wonder, what would you fight for? What's worth everything to you? We're dropping this story in your hands now. Hit the comments. Tell us what hit you hardest about Ho Chi Minh's journey. Was it his guts, his grit, or maybe how he turned pain into power? Share this with someone who'd get fired up by it. And if you're curious, dig deeper. There's a ton more to his legacy waiting out there. Let's keep this conversation going, because a story this big deserves to live on.